giant squid. Less than 10% of the ocean is said to have been explored or mapped, meaning it is nearly impossible to say that we have discovered every living thing within it. But what about creatures long believed to be fake, or tall tales passed around by sailors? The ocean is so vast, surely it's possible they exist somewhere, right? Well, yes, this is possible, and in fact was actually the case with giant squids. Also known as colossal squids, these creatures have long since been depicted attacking ships and whales in artwork and stories ever since the mid-1700s. At that point, it was dubbed the Kraken and was described as something like a man-eating octopus. But despite allegedly existing, and the fact that it became a staple of nautical storytelling, no one had ever actually seen one, so it was kind of widely accepted to just be a story. Of like a made-up creature. This was, however, until around 1925, when E. Hamilton found several body parts within a sperm whale's stomach that, if they were to belong to a real creature, would be the biggest squid ever recorded. But they would never find anything like that until many years later, with the first real confirmed sighting in March of 2003, in which an intact, although already deceased squid was found floating on the surface of the water, and it was this specimen that coined the name colossal squid. Only a few years later, a live colossal squid would be captured in 2007, and it would be the largest specimen ever discovered, at almost 14 meters long, some 45 feet in length. This creature is now on display in New Zealand, but while it was being examined, scientists discovered something kind of disturbing. The beak on the squid was considerably smaller than those discovered within sperm whales, meaning it is possible, or even likely, that much bigger specimens exist somewhere deep within the unexplored ocean. The colossal squid, especially the largest specimen captured in 2007, is also said to have the largest eyes of any creature ever known to exist. Since 2007, the colossal squid has been studied and recorded in their natural habitats, but they still remain incredibly elusive, and much of the information about them is still unknown to this day. But what more were you expecting from a mysterious underwater creature that people didn't even believe existed some 50 years ago? But don't worry too much about the next time you go to the ocean. There's no actual evidence of this creature eating humans, although their primary diet is believed to be a fish about the same size as us. The Baltic Sea Anomaly. In 2011, while treasure hunting in the northern Baltic Sea, a group of Swedish divers known as Ocean X, which included Peter Lindberg, took a scan of the ocean floor, in which they discovered something very strange. The scan appeared to return what one would describe as a circular disc-like object, estimated to be over 60 meters or 200 feet in diameter. On top of this, the Ocean X team also claimed that the structure appeared to have things like ramps or stairs. Things not typically seen in naturally occurring formations. But to be honest, the scan was just too low quality to really be able to tell, with it being described by one as blurry, but interesting. Ocean X would set out the following year to attempt a clearer scan of the structure, but claimed electrical interference prevented them from getting a second, clearer image. It was at this point two things began to happen. Professionals began to question the motives of Ocean X, with one institution claiming the cheap equipment used by the scan made identifying the structure virtually impossible, and tabloids began to pick up the story, attempting to pass off what I could only describe as science fiction illustrations as legitimate scans of the structure, tricking some into believing this was actually a sunken UFO, some even going as far as to say the structure resembled that of the Millennium Falcon from the film Star Wars, with MSNBC even reporting that one of the tabloids just drew the fictional spacecraft on top of the scan of the structure. It is alleged that the Ocean X team did dive to the structure in order to retrieve rock samples, but with the end result being mostly that of granites and sandstones, it seemed clear to many professionals that this was in fact a natural formation. They did note, however, how strange and unusual it is for something so round to be formed naturally, although clearly not impossible. According to a marine archaeologist from Stockholm, it is not even the strangest thing produced in nature, with another calling it curious and fun, but basically not even newsworthy. Peter Lindbergh did say in 2019 that they may return to the structure for a television show that was being produced, but to the best of my knowledge, this did not end up happening. So what do you guys think? A natural formation, sunken structure, or UFO? Let me know down in the comments below. Cursed shipwreck. Some estimate that over 4,000 shipwrecks exist within the Gulf of Mexico, and each of these wrecks tell a story, but one known as the Mika wreck continues to tell stories to this day. In February of 2001, ExxonMobil began a new pipeline and managed to find a shipwreck on the bottom of the ocean, some 2,600 feet down. In fact, they ended up laying a pipe directly across the ship. The proper authorities were contacted, and the Mineral Management Service, also known as the MMS, began investigating the wreck with the help of the US Navy's nuclear research submarine. Researchers were soon able to discover that the ship in question was covered in copper to protect it. Not only that, but estimated it to be around 200 years old, meaning it likely sunk around the late 1700s. But to be honest, this was already unusual, as the copper sheathing would have been expensive and unlike any other merchant ship, like they thought this one was. It was ultimately estimated that the ship in question was headed to or from New Orleans and belonged to the United States. The wreckage was mostly intact, but did show evidence of burning. This is honestly though what I would expect to hear about a shipwreck, maybe even a little on the dull side. But as the title card said, this shipwreck was actually cursed, with scientists jokingly stating any attempts to investigate the wreckage were hindered by bad voodoo. In 2002, while a group attempted to investigate and salvage parts of the ship, the small submarine they sent's hydraulic systems failed only 30 minutes into the expedition, with the video monitor blacking out every time it moved. Issues continued with the sonar failing after reaching the ship, and the captain mishearing directions and moving the submarine in the opposite direction. Less than a year later, another group attempted to send their own robotic submarine, but immediately crashed it into the underside of the ship, resulting in the mini-sub breaking free from its tether and never being seen again. Another team capturing photographs used a robotic arm to attempt to recover artifacts, and that broke as well, also falling into the ocean. In the same year, another ship would attempt to reach the Mika wreck and would suffer from several incidents as it tried to launch, although they would manage to get a piece of copper from the ship the following year after additional mishaps. This was just a piece of copper, however. In other words, there was nothing on it. There was no markings and offered no information about the ship. In other words, virtually useless. So now, no one knows what the ship was carrying, what the ship was called, where it was going, or anything. As far as I can tell, no one has even attempted to visit it since 2003. Maybe they feel like it's no longer worth investigating, or maybe they're afraid of the curse. The bloop sound. The bloop sound is the actual name of an unexplained ultra-low frequency captured on underwater sound sensors in 1997. The sound, nicknamed the bloop, was captured by the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The sound lasted nearly 3 minutes, and it was heard on sensors over 3,000 miles apart. That is farther than the distance from Maine to California, aka the width of the entire United States. I think it's a little hard to comprehend just how loud that is, and at this point, no one had any idea where the sound had come from, and no one had ever heard one like it again. Initially, it was believed that this sound was made by some kind of animal, but this was louder than the cries of even the biggest whales. Meaning if it was made by some kind of underwater beast, it would need to be absolutely massive, like bigger than any animal we had ever seen. So this of course spawns many theories, with many people believing it to be some kind of undiscovered, unseen, massive sea monster. Maybe the Loch Ness Monster, maybe a serpent surrounding the entire earth. The truth is, we just didn't know. This ended up being featured in documentaries, TV shows, comic books, even children's TV shows referenced the sound, all with their own theories of where the sound comes from. However, in 2012, the NOAA changed their opinions about what they think the origin of the sound was. And it's not an animal, and it's not man-made, and it's not even volcanic. They believed it was ice. Essentially just being a piece of an iceberg falling into the water, colliding with the seabed, or with another iceberg. That's it. That's their theory. Notice that I said theory. That is because they still don't really know. And how could they? They recorded this sound about 25 years ago. Even at that time, there was no way of really tracking down what happened. But just imagine it. A creature much, much bigger than a whale, calling out, and that call being heard thousands of miles away, and only being heard one time, ever. That has to really make you think. If they've never been heard before, and they've never been heard since, what made them call out that time in 1997? Maybe they were being attacked. And what can attack a creature of that size? I could only imagine, but I live by the ocean, so maybe I shouldn't. The Bermuda Triangle. Now, it wouldn't be a creepy water-themed list if I didn't mention the Bermuda Triangle. If you don't know what it is, imagine an actual triangle connected from Miami to Puerto Rico and the island of Bermuda. This area covering hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million square miles, and is said to be home to many paranormal events, many disappearances, alien sightings, and more. What is it about this area that is making it such a magnet for weird occurrences? I can offer my opinion, and that's nothing. It's an urban legend, and in theory, it is no more prone to sunken ships or disappearances than any other section of water the same size. Although, I did sail through the Bermuda Triangle on a cruise before I ended up getting 87 free spins on a slot machine. So that was unusual, and a high I've spent every penny I've ever made trying to replicate. But I like urban legends, so I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't at least mention a few of these notable incidents. One of my favorites is Flight 19, a training flight of 5 planes that disappeared on December 5th, 1945. They left Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and planned to fly about 140 miles east and 140 miles back. Although the planes never made it back. All 5 planes disappeared. The leading theory was that they simply miscalculated and ran out of fuel. But when a PBM Mariner rescue aircraft went out to search for them, it too disappeared, along with all 13 men on board. Some claimed to see an explosion, but due to an approaching storm, no one ever really found out. Another interesting story is the USS Cyclops, in what is estimated to be the largest loss of life for the US Navy not related to war. When after leaving the island of Barbados on March 4th, 1918, the ship disappeared without a trace, along with all 308 men on board. There are many theories, but like many of these, likely to always be unconfirmed. One final story I'll mention is the story of witchcraft. But don't get too excited, I don't mean like witchcraft. I mean a boat named Witchcraft. Essentially a luxury yacht that set out with 3 passengers on December 22nd, 1967, hoping to look at Christmas lights in Miami from the ocean. However, a distress call came to the Miami Coast Guard that evening informing them that they had hit something in the water. And although it was not an emergency, they were stuck and needed assistance. They said that they would fire a flare in order to alert them to their position. However, in less than 20 minutes, the Coast Guard reached the spot where the Witchcraft was reported to be, and they weren't there. On top of that, no flare was ever spotted. And if you think they'd just gone free and just left, think again, as the Witchcraft, the captain, and his 2 guests were never seen again. Now what caused all these strange wrecks or disappearances? Well, there's a number of theories, some possible, some exceedingly paranormal. A list I found online suggests Satan, aliens, magnetic fields, the lost city of Atlantis, the fact that the triangle has its own biosphere, reduced water density from methane, time travel, or everyone's favorite, the Illuminati. And I'm not really sure which is more plausible, but I think I'm leaning towards Satan or time travel. Well, that's it for now. Be sure to like the video to help the algorithm, and subscribe to see more content like this. If you like this video, check out this one about 5 YouTubers who committed horrible crimes. I worked really hard on it and nobody watched it, so do me a favor and give it a click. But that's it for now, so I'll see you next time.